Hi best friends, welcome back. Horror and spooky things are fun. It's the spooky time of year, maybe, if I get this up in time. I love spooky things. Spooky, scary, all of it. I am not a supernatural person. I don't believe in ghosts, ghouls, anything supernatural. But I do love it, and it is near and dear to me. So I thought it would be kind of fun to make a video about the few times that I've experienced something that spooked me. Now, I'm not saying that these experiences were supernatural. I think they line up with people telling stories about times they thought they saw something spooky, which I thought would be kind of interesting because I'm a skeptical by nature person, and I have these 3 stories that I'm going to tell you, all true, and were very spooky. So the first story, from when I was maybe 7 or 8, I was living at a hotel at the time with my mother in a room with 2 queen beds, nothing out of the ordinary to the room. It did have a vaulted ceiling, very slanted, and that will come into play later. So I had always had trouble sleeping, falling asleep, staying asleep. I still struggle with that today. One night, I was sleeping on my bed, and my mom was on the other bed, and I woke up, middle of the night. I couldn't move. I noticed something on the ceiling, on the vaulted ceiling. A shadow was stretched across it in the shape of a man wearing like a wide-brimmed hat. At the time, it was terrifying. I thought, there's someone standing around the corner, because the way the shadow was positioned, I couldn't see what was casting it because there was a wall there. The shadow was the only thing. I was so frozen with fear, so terrified, that I must have stared at it. It felt like it was for hours, that I just stared at that shadow, willing it to either move or go away. I needed something to happen because it was driving me crazy. Like, my skin crawls even thinking about that shadow. It was so vivid. I fell back asleep eventually. When I woke up, my blanket was torn. One long tear from the base of the blanket to the top of the blanket. Like a perfect, as if you took like a box cutter and cut up the length of the blanket. It spooked me. It spooked me real good. I would assume, my rational brain tells me, I ripped the blanket in my sleep. I scratched it. I've been known to thrash about. I've been known to sleepwalk. That's not too unusual, but still, spooky. My next story was from when I was really, really young, 4 or 5. I shared a room with my brother, and in order to get to the hallway, to get to the rest of the house, you had to go through my sister's room. One morning, I woke up early. You know how kids are. They wake up whenever they feel like it. Everyone else was asleep. I crawled out of my bed, walked through to my sister's room, and went to the door that led to the hallway. I couldn't open the door, and I don't believe the door had a lock on it, but I couldn't get it open. And, I'm a clumsy child. I probably just wasn't trying hard enough. But I looked under the door at the little crack to see maybe there's something on the other side blocking the door. And I couldn't see anything. There was nothing there. I could just see the hallway. And I put my tiny little baby fingers under the door, and something stepped on them. And I looked to see what was stepping on my fingers, and I saw a boot, a tan, generic work boot. Someone was standing at the door with one of their feet on my hands, and it hurt. It hurt really bad. I must have been there for 5 or 10 minutes, it felt like, and I could not get my hand free. Weirdly, I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't like, hey, stop, or ouch, or crying. I just kept trying to pull my hand out. Eventually, my hand came free. I looked under, boots were gone. I had assumed that my mother's boyfriend at the time had come out to the hallway to stop me from going out and, tell me to go back to bed, is what I had guessed it was. But when I asked about it, they had no clue. They said, we were never out there. We never did that. We would never step on your hand. To this day, I have no idea what that was. Probably a dream, but I remember it incredibly vividly. And the last of my little spooky tales from my own personal life. I was about 16, and I still wasn't into horror yet. That didn't come until later. I still didn't believe in supernatural anything, or ghosts, or ghouls, or anything, but I had terrible nightmares, awful. One night, I woke up in my room, the den I was sleeping in, and it was pitch black, middle of the night, maybe 2, 3 a.m. I couldn't remember my dream. I didn't have a nightmare. I wasn't scared. I wasn't thrown off. So I got up in the dark house and thought to myself, I have to use the bathroom. So I walk across the dark hall and into the dark bathroom, turn the light on, use the bathroom. And this is a tiny powder room, so it just has a toilet and a standing sink. That's it. And the door behind me didn't have a lock on it. It used to, but when they replaced the handle, they got one without a lock. So anyone could just walk in. It's not like the door was locked. And when I turned around to go back to bed, leave the bathroom, cross the hall, I couldn't open the door. And not that the door would not open. I could not open it. I was gripped with an intense, spine-chilling fear, like a terror. Oh, the exact feeling, I guess, was someone is on the other side of the door, and if I open the door, they will be there, and something bad will happen. And I try to rationalize and say, oh, you're being crazy, Jacob. Everyone's asleep. It's the middle of the night. You just had to use the bathroom. Why are you so scared? I couldn't do it. I put the lid down on the toilet seat, sat down on it, and just stared at the door and the door handle. I must have been in there for 20 minutes before I opened the door, because I kept thinking to myself, I was doing that thing, you do it in the morning where you're like, I'm gonna get up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then your body doesn't move. I kept doing that. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna open the door, and there's gonna be nothing there. It's gonna be an empty hallway, there's nothing going on, just do it. Do it in 10 seconds. Do it in 5 seconds. Do it now. Finally, after some time, I mustered the courage, opened the door, and of course, there's nothing there. There's nothing there waiting for me. I cross the hall and go back to sleep. But that feeling has always stuck with me. I don't think I've ever felt such an intense fear, or I guess dread. Dread is the better word. Just something will happen for sure if I open this door. So those are my 3 spooky tales of things that I've experienced that I would qualify as pseudo-supernatural. Because although I don't believe anything supernatural has ever happened to me, or anyone else, I guess, I enjoy the thoughts of those stories. They make me shiver. I think of them in bed occasionally, and I'll get a little, ooh. Do you have any stories? Has anything happened to you? I do love hearing them, even if I'm, in my head thinking, well, they're not telling the truth. It's still fun to hear. And on that spooky note, and on that spooky note, do you guys hear that? Someone's knocking at my door. I'm not expecting anyone. Hello?